Salutations, fellow nerds. I'm Rick Y, the Wise Guy, and today is December 31st, 2024. And we're at the tail end of the year and we face a new dawn together. But we also face quite a few challenges going ahead, so I thought it would be beneficial to help some of y'all when it comes to trying to discuss some of the strategies that will inevitably be used by the folks who don't actually have a good faith approach towards politics and wish to maintain a tribal loyalty to a team rather than their country. These tactics are used by both sides of the political spectrum, and if you're cautious, you'll be able to spot some of them and kind of nip them in the bud ahead of time, regardless of who it's being used by. So if you enjoy news, history, or Americana in general, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Sit a spell. Take your shoes off. Let's cover the elephant in the room. I am a white, cis male who will always be an ally. Full stop. If you're gay, bi, transgender, non-binary, I don't care. What matters to me is that you are a human being and that you're treated like a human being. It's really not that hard. Those who find this topic difficult have chosen to make the topic difficult on themselves. How a person identifies in this world doesn't affect me. If conservatives got out of their religious spheres a little bit more for a bit, they'd probably recognize how big of a personal liberty issue this is, and should be more open to accepting more folks. But the members of our society who have received a lot of public backlash are athletes, and not just any athletes, but trans women in particular. You see, in American society at the moment, we hear a constant droning on about this issue, and going beyond the human decency aspect of treating other people with basic respect. But in the grand scheme of it all, it's rather irrelevant. I can prove it to you by pointing out that this actually isn't the first time that it's been an issue in our body politic. Renee Richards was born in 1934 in New York and was described growing up as a nice Jewish boy. She went on to transition to female and became a professional tennis player. During the time, it was considered a mental illness and immorality. So there was no like TikTok or anything telling her how cool it was to be trans or whatever the excuse is these days. She was also a medical doctor, specializing in ophthalmology. So I'm sure there's some of you out here who would love to try and discuss the human body with her and how it works. But she was also a veteran of our armed services. Interestingly enough, on a somewhat sardonic sense, was that after she had undergone her sex reassignment surgeries, she was outed by a local television anchor, Richard Carlson, father of the now infamous Tucker Carlson. Conservative hate is nothing if not consistent, as it appears the apple did not rot far from the tree. I guess my biggest question is how will this play out with your grocery prices? What about the border? Jobs? Economy? Are there fabulous caravans of LGBTQ people storming our border to take our jobs? What about the climate? How many trans athletes are increasing carbon emissions just by being trans? You never heard of these issues because they don't exist. Transgender individuals, like cis men and women, are just people trying to get by. They're worried about the same shit you are, while also being concerned that they'll be ostracized for who they are. The biggest fear surrounds the safety of our children, but the same people who seem so concerned about it have no problem leaving their children with a priest. And if you understood the underlying point there, it's because the history of members of the cloth and deviant abuse of children without much or any repercussion is so ubiquitous that I almost have difficulty with people who clutch their pearls when it's brought up. Look up James W. Jackson. Oh, also, look up that time in 2019 where nearly 1,700 Catholic priests and other members of the clergy were uh, found to have been, let's say, carrying around credible accusations of abuse. And they're also now living around schools, parks, and playgrounds across the United States with no supervision by law enforcement. But tell me again how Leah Thomas and her breaststroke are the biggest threat facing our youth. The truly biggest concern most realistic parents have for their children's safety right now is not seeing them again after dropping them off at kindergarten because some deranged lunatic was given unfettered access to firearms. If you're not willing to address true crimes against children when they're occurring on overwhelming levels, then you are not allowed to lecture others on crimes that only exist in your own mind. If you're too wrapped up around this that it causes you reservation in the voting booth, then you have been made victim to a wedge issue. The term cognitive dissonance is a phrase used when a person can hold on to two completely contrary points of view, and this is found most often in cases of people being exploited with wedge issues, where we must all abide by the words enshrined by the Second Amendment, when we mischaracterize its wording with no exceptions and only think of the children when a man looks better than you ever will in a pair of Spanx. It does not affect my life or quality of life for my family. The best way to defend against this is by asking what the biggest concerns are to the voter that you're talking with, and then stay on topic. The greatest strategies used by those who don't wish to have an engaging conversation with you and act in good faith will constantly try to change subjects or create false equivalencies. Just keep bringing them back to the topic that concerns them the most. And then ask how the biggest fears that they have actually affect the life that they've lived within their own homes, with their own families. There are other tactics that are widely used by people in bad faith, but keeping them honest and on the rails will allow for you to keep the conversation from losing control. If they consistently try to derail the subject, walk away. You're not obligated to humor those who are more interested in speaking at you instead of with you. It's disrespectful to you, and you don't have to tolerate disrespect. Let them understand that when they're ready to actually address the real concerns of this world as adults, you're more than ready to engage. Um, Going forward, I will keep bringing these interesting little strategies to try and help y'all in the coming months, because I've picked up on a pattern with a lot of those who try to have these discussions. And once I picked up on these patterns, um, navigating political discourse became a little easier. And I could actually show why the ways in which they've been manipulated are detrimental overall to their ability to process critical thought. Because the folks who want you to lean on these hollow tactics only do so because their positions can't stand up on their own. Y'all should feel more than happy to knock them down as they come. And the best way to do that is to stay informed, stay engaged, and stay decent. Until next time, y'all come back now. You hear?